I seem to be one who is more curious about why people believe what they believe than trying to get them to believe something else. And I think this is how God has been in my life, where he seems to be relaxed. He seems to not be worried. He doesn't seem to be pressuring me to get to a deadline where I fully believe something. He's just like, let's just uncover you. I'm going to unravel you. I'm going to come into the place where you've been deceived. I'm going to come into the place where you've been in the dark and you've picked up things that did not belong to you. And in that place, with my light, I will judge what you are holding. And in that place, by my light, I will judge what you have believed. And so this is what is always curious to me, because I don't put on like the positive negative thing anymore. I don't do the whole good versus evil thing anymore, right? I don't do that. I don't do this duality of thinking where I need to stay on one side and make sure I don't get on the other side. Like, no, I don't do that. There is no space with that in our relationship. He does not seem to see me in this way where he's trying to get me to act good. And he doesn't seem to look at acting bad as something that is bad. Instead, with me, he seems to just draw out the why, the how it came to be sort of thing. And then this grace to receive by faith a renewed mind that sees myself in a different way, that seems to reverse engineer bad behavior. You see, I think the way to actually get over what we consider bad behavior or anything we don't like about ourselves is to see it in a different way. And you will see it in a different way in the light of his eyes. And by the light of his eyes, you will become curious of a completely new world that you didn't know anything about, which will show you how much you've been in the dark about what is true. I really like that. He doesn't seem to look at me with shadows, and so he's not trying to get me to behave, right? I come from a place conformed by the world in darkness, a world that believes that they are separate from God because they've been in darkness and they've been deceived to believe such things. And in this way, they have tried to be God themselves, right? They've tried to put on the clothes because they feel self-conscious. I, born into this world, caught up in the same thing, okay? And I, feeling ashamed of my behavior, go to God and pray about it. I should not be doing this. You're not pleased with this, blah, 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 this sort of thing. And what does he do? He just sits with me in that thing. And he just shows me that he's not like anyone else with me in that thing. And I think you have to kind of be in the thing that you feel ashamed of, right? And kind of like go through that door continually to see, to know, for that to become a foundational thing in you. You are received here. You're not received when you're on top of the mountain and you have like self-control and you're able to make everything all rosy and nice and all of the things you do for God. That's not even your relationship with God. Not to me. My relationship with God is where I am, where he is, and then faith is in the middle. He sees something I don't quite see. I'm believing that what he sees is to be true, as what he sees is judging what I've always seen and said, this is where you've been limited. But I don't blame you. I find you in the darkness. Now I'm taking you to magnificent light. I'm coming in and judging what you have believed. And I'm showing you where you have been deceived. And we can think that where we have been deceived, we should be ashamed. And he's like, I'm coming to judge that too. Because it is not your fault that you were deceived. It is not your fault that you were born into darkness. This is not a design flaw. This is not something that you are falling short and you should be having a better handle on. It's not about keeping it all together or trying to stay positive. That's not what he's doing with me anyway. And what he is doing with me at the right time, maybe it's this time now, will judge the things from before, trying to keep it all together, trying to be polished, trying to put on Sunday's best or whatever. And he will say, who is closer to God? The one who tried to get closer to God by cleaning themselves up, or the one that surrendered in their weakness and said, I feel ashamed because I am weak. And he's like, I do not see you this way. And in that way, your perspective is laid down at his feet, the one that is cloudy. And then by faith, you receive his perspective that he sees you without shame. He honors you in the places where you feel the most ashamed. And in that place, you will become closer to him like you've never been close to anyone else. You won't become intimate with someone with clothes on. It will be when you are unclothed. There's only so far you can go when you have clothes on, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Right. So you have to be unclothed. He has to be unclothed. In this way of like, think of clothes like the shadows, the darkness, right? We put these things on. We're like, oh, I have to cover myself. I have to bring this to the table. I have to have this. I have to have my talents and my skills. It's what I'm doing for God. It's how I keep my mind focused on positive things. We put all of these things on because we're taught to put all these things on. Because we're told that we're deceived in the darkness that said, oh, you're self-conscious because you're not wearing enough clothes. Here, put this on, put this on, put this on. And he's like, no, you're self-conscious because you don't know the truth that I receive you without clothes. So I'm going to come in and strip you because that's the only way that we're going to be intimate. That's the only way that we're actually going to become close. So I seem to be curious about where people are coming from in their belief system, because that's how he really addresses me. He doesn't even say what you believe is bad. It's more of this inferior to superior thing, right? It's not this good versus bad. It's this, the truth is superior to that of what I've learned in the dark, which is inferior. And superior will be where the power is that comes into the inferior, the weakness of my position and where I've been deceived in the dark, and says, I will not allow this to go on for so long. I am coming to free you from the bondage of being domesticated. The bondage of feeling like you have to live a certain way and be a certain way. It's in the airwaves, people. This religious way of thinking is in the airwaves. The fear in that is in the airwaves. And you don't even have to be religious. I think the religious way of thinking is just part of the way that the world thinks. You think like an orphan, ashamed of not having enough clothes. He comes in, he uncovers you and says, I receive you here. I know why you have believed what you have believed. I know why you feel the way you feel. Even today, I was like, look, God, like logically, I know you in this way, but my heart feels scattered. My heart feels scattered. My heart feels like it is condemning me in this moment, but logically, it's like, yes, you have been faithful. If I logically say, oh, you've been faithful to me here and here and here, and I've seen it over and over, but there's this weariness in my heart. There's where I feel condemned in my heart. And he's not trying to get me to be like, no, put that aside and think about all the times that I came through for you and have the mental power to somehow put yourself in a better situation. No, he doesn't need to do that with me. In fact, he says, I am with you and where your heart has been condemned, but I do not condemn you in your heart. He comes for you in the place that you don't feel like you're ever going to have anyone arrive. He shows up in the place that you feel the least likely to receive a visitor. The loneliest place. So if you have come to know, or you're coming to know the loneliest place in you, that's where your heart cry is going to be, that you feel like no one hears. And you're thinking that you got to do certain things, do all these things. And I would say, well, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you believe that what you believe is this? People tell themselves all the time, the judgments in people's words towards themselves. The projection of what people believe is in every conversation, it seems. It's not hard to look for. People tell on themselves of how they feel ashamed and how they've been taught to put on shame. How they've been conformed by the world comes out when people speak. It's in the airwaves. And he's just like, no, he doesn't say, no, this is bad. He's like, this is inferior to what is superior. And superior will judge what is inferior. And I will show you what I've always seen. And then you will be liberated. And you will receive my perspective and will become your new foundation. The truth will set you free.